All right, welcome everybody. Today is Monday, May the 6th. Here we are in our first day of our course on building web applications using markup languages. So, as a number of people aren't here today, I guess they didn't get their schedule on time or something. I'm just going to be going an overview of the course, and I'm going to encourage that anybody who is not here today, please review this so you're going to know what's going on later. So, we have a number of good source materials here for you to study. And I was updating. I'm actually writing a book on this, which I'm going to give you the most up-to-date version, and then we'll proceed and study our course outline. You're actually going to be using LaTeX later on for your project to document your project. So pay attention as I'm using LaTeX in this tool called Overleaf, as eventually it's going to be something you need to do as well. Right, so this book is going to, I have up to our week one material. I'll be adding stuff as we go along, depending on how quickly we progress. So let's start by kicking this out to you as a PDF. There we go, download PDF. I'm going to keep all of our learning materials in one announcement so they're not scattered all over the place. One thing I don't really like too much about Google Classroom is it doesn't give you like a sort of a central landing page type of thing. You scatter your stuff all over the place. So we'll be using a Google Doc to make our own landing page. For right now, I guess I'll drop this in here, which is also your location for your Google Doc. So let's put that there. You guys can refresh the page. Have you guys gotten the link to Google Classroom yet? Yeah, you do have it, so you can get into that. Very good. All right, so let's put that there. Right, so you can go and download this PDF, but I'm going to do some other stuff first. So I suppose we should probably make an agenda. And again, rather than keeping stuff here in Google Classroom where it's sort of scattered all over the place, I have made a Google Doc and everything is going to be in there, right? That's going to be our class learning journal. That way, when it comes time to work on your assignment, your project, or study for your test, you will have everything in one place and you can just go through there and see it all, not having to like, I don't know, it's just to help you organize things a little bit. So let's get into here and take a look at that. So MO 1003, Introduction to Markup Languages for Web Application Development. So please go and watch this video. This is a video I generated with AI, which sort of personifies, whoops, I'm not in here as an editor. All right, so let me get in here and go to my other account where I'm an editor. All right, better. So, yeah, go and watch this video. I used AI to generate a video sort of talking about this div tag as if it were a person and talking about its day at work. And the purpose of this is to give you sort of an intuition, a feeling, right? So, watch this video to get an intuitive feeling of what the HTML document object model is, how nodes work in the HTML document object model, how they are. Actually, this is good stuff I'm saying. I suppose I should go and open an Otter AI dictation so I can kick this out later. Whoops, I got to go back and reset my account. I'll do that during the break or something, and I will spend time to do that now. All right, so anyway, watch this video to get a sense, like to learn how HTML tags form the HTML DOM, which is processed in the browser object model of the browser. That's how a web page works. So here's going to be where I'll be putting all our weekly lesson plans. We'll get to that in a couple of minutes. It's just another link. And here is what we're going to do right now. And for people who are not here who want to get ready for next week, you can watch the video to see how we're going to be setting up Visual Studio Code as our HTML authoring tool. And there's the link to the PowerPoint, which is also in your Google Classroom. So you should go and be familiar with that as well. So now we're going to go over all the stuff we do on day one. So anyway, that was just an introduction to our class learning journal. So now let's, and I also gave you that, so you've got that going on now. So when I did say that we're going to use our journal as our diary for each week to keep track, to journal, to keep track of what we're doing. So day one, class log. So first of all, we're going to review the course outline and the evaluation timetable so you see what tests and assignments are coming up. And then we're going to install, make sure everybody is good with Visual Studio Code, which is going to be our main tool here. And then we're going to start creating some web pages. All right, so step one now, course outline, is available in your Google Classroom. Let's go and see that. So a couple of important things here the office asked me to point out to you. Number one, is contact information, and there's also academic weeks. Because a lot of the time for all of your classes, not just this one, they're going to say something is due week 5, week 7, or whatever. Not sure, well, what exactly is week 7? Can always go in here and take a look at it. So this is a 15-week class, and at the very end of it, so for us, that's like Monday to Saturday, right? So we're starting on Monday. So August 12th, we can see will be our final exam. June 24 to June 30th is reading week. And then we're going to have some midterm exams around here, so that'll be week 7. Anyway, so be familiar with that. Maybe save a copy of that somewhere. And contact information, if you have any questions on any general things, you can go and contact. There's some emails you can look at there. All right, so now let's go and look over our course outline, which is available here. No, actually, that is my book. Where's your course outline? Didn't they put it here? There's the video I want you to watch. Ah, there is your weekly class plan, which is just our Google Journal again, so you've already seen that. There's the introduction to our course, so go and read through that. The office might not have uploaded the class, the course outline yet, so I'm going to go and do that now. All right, so let's go and take a look at that. So you guys are in the mobile application development stream, and this course is an introduction to web and web page programming. The focus of this course is on how we build web applications, and in your case, have you guys had, where are you yet? Have you had Android and iOS development yet? Not yet. All right, because in some versions of the course they do, in which case, well, actually, even though, because you're in mobile app, maybe towards the end in the last couple of weeks of class, we can make some examples with Android, and we can show how we can build web applications that use Android as their delivery platform. iOS is a bit more of a pain. With iOS, you have to have a Mac and so on, so it's a little bit kind of irritating, but we'll see about that later on. So the focus of this course is fundamental to building web applications. We're going to introduce HTML5 and CSS and also JavaScript. Upon completion of this course, you will have a knowledge of how internet applications work by explaining the architecture, and all of this is in your textbook that I wrote you, by the way. Explaining the architecture of a web application, ability to describe key components of a web page, which by now already you should know are what? HTML DOM, nodes become elements of the page. In fact, let's draw a little picture as we're going along, because as technical people, often we sort of have more of a comfort of thinking about things visually. So let's see if we can do that right here from the beginning. So I'm going to open up my little diagramming tool, and we'll draw some pictures as we progress. Nope, I didn't want that one. That's a diagramming tool. I wanted a mind mapping tool. They just updated all of this stuff. I can't keep track of these new names they use. When somebody gets something running, they should just leave it the way it is instead of trying to fix it again. All right, so probably what I wanted was redraw max. Ah, that's what I want. Good. I'm just going to draw some. It's just sort of, it's like draw. Oh, Jesus Christ, really? It's expired? Where does the time go? Anyway, I'll come back to this later. I can just use PowerPoint for right now. Or I could use draw.io. I'm just trying to think about teaching you tools that you're going to have to be using for your assignments. Uh, I'll just keep it all in the PowerPoint for right now. So you guys have the Dropbox link to this at any point. Just you can download the update from the Dropbox. So a web application, or what's commonly referred to as a web page, is a collection of nodes. So imagine we have a web page right here, which is more sort of technically referred to as the HTML document object model. HTML document object model. Hypertext markup language is a specification we're going to study more later. It's in your textbook as well. It refers to an international standard that everybody got together and agreed on back in the late 1980s so that anybody anywhere in the world who's writing a web server can work with web pages that anybody else is working with. So HTML document object model. And the concept here is that it consists of a series of nodes. Everything in a web page is a tag. So if we go to any standard web page, say we go to, what's a simple web page? I don't know, hp.net or something. So one of the tools we're going to be using here is view source. So right click and view source, and that shows you what the tags, right? So each of these things are tags. So an HTML document object model opens with HTML, and it also has some attributes. So that tag has attributes such as language and so on. And at the very bottom, it's going to close with close HTML. So close HTML. Now within there, we have two main child nodes. So the first child node is head, and within the head, you have stuff which does not show to the user, but it's consumed by the server, and the server uses it as it's sort of displaying the page. So there's your head tag. It has some meta information. That just means stuff that might be consumed by the browser to see things like your default language and so on. And of course, the head tag has to be closed because everything has to be closed. So there's the closing of the head tag down there somewhere. This is JavaScript we're going to be getting into at the end of today's class. Just looking for the closing of the head tag. I should have gone with a simpler page, I suppose. I'll go with my page. Maybe that's simpler. Network's really slow, but we'll move past that. All right, let's try this again. So view page source. So once again, open HTML, close HTML is down there. Open head, close head. And now we have the other main tag, which is body. So there we say open body, and down at the very bottom before close HTML, we'll have close body. There it is. And then within the body, we have other tags or other nodes, and the purpose of those nodes is to make all the content on the page show up. So here, for example, see that's still in the head, body. So note here we have something called ID. Now ID is an example of a selector, and in a couple of minutes we'll go and do the lab exercises, so we'll go hands-on in this. But there's various kinds of ways you can point to nodes in the DOM. And in fact, there's three ways. There's HTML tag name, class, and ID, and those are used in connection with CSS and JavaScript to access and change various parts of the page. Now we have different structuring elements here in HTML. So we have div, that's a main structuring element. That's a way of organizing little boxes on the page. And I think that's the only one that's being used here. So here, class, that's another kind of a selector. Anyway, that's what the anatomy of a page looks like. Just wanted to start by looking at that. So now we understand what we mean when we say that the document object model is a collection, it's a set of connected nodes. So we have nodes. What's a node? A node is an HTML tag. Oops. So the DOM is a forest in a sense. It's a collection, just like a forest is a collection of trees. A document object model is a collection of nodes. Now, if you watch the video, or if you haven't yet watched it, then watch it before next class, Divi's first day at work. And you're going to find out that a node can have data, and a node can also have events. A node can be a sender of events, or it can be a target of events. So let's say I have a button. In fact, the last thing we're going to do in today's lab, we'll set up a little page so we can click a button, and as you click a button, it changes the image, you know, from maybe a light bulb being on to a light bulb being off or something. How do you do that? Because everything that's on the page is a node, which is an HTML tag. It can render text, can render images, or it can render videos, or it can render rich content media, you know, like SVG graphics and so on. But a node, here's what I want you to think about right now. A node can have data, so in a very simple sense, it could be the color of the text. And it can also, I can set it up with JavaScript, so if I click on an image or some text or a button, that's going to send out an event, and other events can be wired up to listen to those events. So the bottom line where we've gotten to with all of this now is that node can have data. So here's the stuff which is true about nodes. Node has data, and node can send or listen to events. That's what makes web pages dynamic. So we call it an emitter, means a sender out of or a listener to events. What's an event? Mouse over, click, page load, or you can set it up for your project. You're going to be making a little web page which is hooked up to Open Weather API and also to Google Earth. So user can enter in a certain geographic location, and then they can get a Google Map image and it can overlay the weather onto it. So let's say if the weather changes, if there's a notification now there's a thunderstorm or whatever, that's an event, but that's external to your page. So that's not something the user did, that's that it's listening with something called an API to another source. So Node has data, so for example text can have color, which is data for a text node like the p tag. And Node can emit or listen to events, so mouse click, for example, could be an event. So now everything that we're going to do in connection to this course is going to relate to this little diagram that we've drawn right here. Everything when you're making a web page, even JavaScript, for example, well, JavaScript lives in a type of a node on the page called a script node, and that script node makes the JavaScript available to the execution context of your page. So some other important facts of the world regarding nodes. We can manipulate, we can change the data, or we can manage the events of nodes. Using cascading style sheets and using JavaScript. But in all cases, to target a node, by the way, CSS, the way this guy works, he's pretty simple. This is a markup language just like HTML is a markup language. All of this stuff is in your textbook, right? Go read your textbook. Now it'll be so clear because we're already talking through it. This is a markup language, which means what? Which means that it's a certain set of structured instructions to a rendering mechanism such as a web browser to make certain content appear on the canvas of that device. So CSS is a markup language. Which targets, which has there's two things to a CSS rule. So a CSS rule has a target node, and we can target by, we can direct our instructions to tag name, something called an ID, which we haven't seen yet, but we're going to, or something called a class name. And the other part of a CSS rule is an instruction. So let's say that I want to access like the p tag in a page and make the background color to be yellow or something. I would provide that instruction. So I'd make a CSS rule which would have a target and an instruction. To do what? You should be able to fill in the blanks on this by yourself now. to change the data of the node, such as changing the color of the node. And similarly, JavaScript is a programming language which works by addressing, accessing, connecting to nodes via selector, same as CSS. And you probably already guessed the last part of it, which is changing the data or setting the event listener or event emitting state of that node. So anyway, we're just going to go back now and finish reviewing our course outline, but it would be much clearer now, right? You'll have a much clearer understanding of what they're talking about if you understand that this is the basis of working with a web page, this is the basis of working with a web application, you're working with nodes, and you're using CSS and JavaScript to change the event, listener, or data state of the node. That's all, not complicated. It's like an onion, right? You start very simply, then you build out from there. All right, let's go back and finish reviewing our course outline. Right, so we're saying this course is an introduction to building web applications. HTML5 and CSS are markup languages, which means that they're structured sets of instructions. All of this is, I'm not writing this down because it's in my PDF textbook. A markup language, actually, maybe I should just, I don't know sure how I put it. That's a very good way of saying it. Maybe I should capture this here. Where did I put mine? Oh, it's right here. All right, markup languages. So this is LaTeX. See, this coding right here is LaTeX, and this tool I'm using is Overleaf. And the intersection of this with this course is your project. At the end, you're going to be documenting it and describing your design. You have to make a website, and the documentation is going to be done in LaTeX. We'll talk about that starting maybe week 7 or something, but you can just zone in and pay attention to what I'm doing because you're going to be doing it soon as well. And also, LaTeX is a very in-demand skill, right? A lot of demand for new graduates to come in, and they get, you know, the new graduates to document the systems because now all these companies are changing their infrastructure over to being AI centric, and to do that they have to have a very well documented baseline of how their system works now. Bottom line is, I know people who graduated from this program who got the job and beat out other candidates because they knew LaTeX and the other ones did not. So anyway, markup languages. Such as CSS and HTML. Are structured sets of instructions. Well, you've seen HTML code already, so you get a sense what that means. Are structured sets of instructions to a target device. iPhone screen, right, Android screen, web browser, are set structured sets of instructions to a target device to render content, and we generally leave it up to the device decides how to render the content. I remember back in the early '90s when I was making web pages at IBM, it would make the marketing managers very angry at us. They'd say, "Oh, I want this image to be 3 pixels further to the left." Because if you're doing desktop publishing with Photoshop or something, you can do that. We could not make them understand that the nature of the HTML markup language is you give the content to the device and the device decides how to render it. Because one person might be using a very small old browser, very low resolution. Somebody else might have, a super high def, whatever, 2048 by 1024, whatever, 64,000 colors of resolution. So the designer cannot control, right? The designer can just say, I want something that looks sort of like this, and then the target device decides what to make it look like. So markup languages are targeted sets of instructions to a target device to render content. And web technologies, such as we're going to be working with here, take their standards from what are called RFC, request for comments. So there are RFC specifications for all of the big technologies out there. I remember for a couple of years at IBM in the late '90s, I was working with an HR function. One of my jobs was to interview new graduates, right, new college graduates who wanted either a full-time job or an internship. And if it was for a web position, one of the questions I would ask is, what was the most, I just asked some question to probe how much they were really into what they were doing. I'd say, what was your most interesting observation when you wrote the HTML request for comment specification? And if they acted like if they showed me they didn't know what that meant, I would basically say, you can go now. I know everything I need to know. So if you're serious about wanting to get the job, then take an interest in the literature and the technologies of your field. So web technologies take their sort of they take their ideas of the world, take their inputs from what are called request for comment documents, which are created by communities of expert practitioners who get together and they set these things. So when we say, well, what's the difference between HTML 5.1 and HTML5? Well, the specification is different, and then you should know what those differences are. So web technologies take their inputs from RFC, request for comments documents. And I used to know the numbers for HTML, but I can't, so I'm just going to go and Google it. I think it's 822, but I could be wrong. Yeah, so anyway, I guess Mozilla, it used to be hosted by something called the RFC site, but I guess now it's hosted by Mozilla. So anyway, that's something you can go and take a look at. I want to get ahead now and start doing some coding. I just spent the first hour of class giving some background so we'd have a little bit of a feeling of what we're doing, but we're probably about ready to go and start doing some coding, so let's go and do that. Let's finish our course outline first. All right, so upon completion, you should know how the internet works. I kicked out a video there called, it's another AI generated video about a TCP/IP packet and its journey through the internet. It is linked in your welcome to class message. I'm not going to talk about how TCP/IP works unless anybody has specific questions, but I'll give you some material you can go and study on by yourself. You can always ask me when you have questions. So you understand how TCP/IP works, how web browsers and web servers work, and how applications work by understanding the architecture of the application, describe the key components of a web page. Well, now you know that that's the DOM model, right? The topology, the collection of nodes, and explain various tools for web distribution. So in the previous classes, I talked about web servers. Now there's an increasing movement over to what are called serverless architectures and infrastructure as a service, IaaS. I developed some new material for this course. We'll be getting to maybe in week 7 or week 8. Students should be competent to explain how web pages work, coding a web page in HTML, CSS. Now they don't mention JavaScript here, but they should, so I'm going to cover JavaScript as well. Upon successful completion of the course, yeah, do all this stuff, right? Produce good business solutions, so great. This stuff I'm not going to go over because it is all in your textbook. And the minimum passing course here is 60%, so yeah, just come to class and you'll get that. And now let's go over to our Google Classroom document, or yeah, to our Google thing and see what's the dates for all this stuff, and I suggest you put that in your Google Calendar so you don't lose track of that. So week 3, so this is week 1. So week 3, which is, I don't know, in 2 weeks, we're going to have a quiz, which will be based on all the stuff I'm saying this week and next week. And then week 9, we'll have another quiz. Your project will be due towards the end at week 12 and final exam on week 14. So anyway, those are the dates. Keep them handy. There is our instruction, which is how to set up Visual Studio Code. So let me give you a little task now, then we'll take a break. So have you guys set up, do you guys have Visual Studio Code set up? You do have. You do, yeah, you? You all have Visual Studio Code. Very cool. All right, because I was going to get you guys to install it, but you already have it. All right, let's take a break until 10:20. And then when we come back, we're just going to spend from now, our course is going to what, 11? Is it 11 today? Yeah, 9 to 11. So that'll give us about 45 minutes to just go and start playing around with writing some web pages. So on break, resume at 10:20.